Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Azizatul Bariroh, and in this opportunity I'll explain about the informal system and the hidden curriculum, how invisible forces impact educational experience. And the reference or source of my explanation today is from the book The Sociology of Education, a Systematic Analysis, Chapter 9. The outline of today's theme is divided into two, namely, the open system approach and the informal system, and the educational climate and school effectiveness. And then the internal system of the school. Before we go any further, let me first explain that schools are fascinating places. School experience use a powerful and yet often invisible influence on students. This powerful yet often invisible influence emerges from the informal system that exists within schools. To clarify, the internal system of the school is composed of two parts. The first is the formal part, consisting of roles such as administrators, teachers, and students, and structure such as hierarchy, rules, and regulations. And then the second is the informal part, consisting of those unplanned, unofficial, and often unintentional aspects that exist alongside or independent of the formal official functions of the school. The informal system of the school is the subject of my explanation today. The open systems approach and the informal system. The education system is a complex organization. Because it is an organization, the school also implements a system like any other organization, one of which is an open system. An organization as an open system is an organization that interacts with the environment. In other words, an organization that receives something from one system and releases it to another system. Organization is an open system because it always interacts with its environment. In the open system model, between formal and informal aspects of the internal system have some differences, but I'll just explain about several aspects of the informal system. So, the informal system in education that I'll explain is about a hidden curriculum, classroom codes, cultural capital and organizational habitus, normative institutional arrangement, education and the built environment, and the last is school size. Hidden curriculum. The term hidden curriculum was coined by Philip Jackson in his 1968 classic, Life in Classroom. Since then, the concept has been embraced by educators, sociologists, and psychologists who wish to draw attention to what happens within the informal system of schools. It is through the hidden curriculum that students subtly absorb the norms, values, and beliefs that govern both the educational system and the wider society. The hidden curriculum is said to strengthen social inequality by educating students in various problems and behaviors according to their class and social status. Likewise, there is an inequality in the distribution of cultural capital in society, in the form of a related distribution of knowledge among students. In fact, hidden curriculum is difficult to define explicitly because they vary between students and their experiences, and because they are always changing as people's knowledge and beliefs develop. Although the hidden curriculum provides students with a large amount of knowledge, the inequality that results from class disparities and social status often creates negative connotations. For example, Pierre Bourdieu emphasized that education-related capital must be accessible to improve academic achievement. The effectiveness of schools will be limited if this kind of capital is distributed unequally. The function of the hidden curriculum include value inculcation, political outreach, training in obedience, perpetuation of traditional class structures, and functions that have general characteristics such as social control. And then the second is visible and hidden curriculum differences. Actual or visible curriculum is a formalism that are built into text and lesson plans, such as reading, writing, in an arithmetic, or we know by 3R. The visible curriculum contains formal knowledge of US history, familiarity with classic literature, and conventions of reading, as well as an array of scientific and mathematical knowledge. Then, hidden curriculum, by contrast, is made up of a different 3R. There are rules, routines, and regulations. And then hidden curriculum in functionalist and conflict perspective. The functionalist perspective, which emphasizes harmony and social cohesion, views the hidden curriculum as a necessary and positive feature of the educational system. It is through the hidden curriculum that students learn collective values such as patriotism and competitions, and how to cooperate with others. From the conflict perspective, the hidden curriculum looks very different. According to them, see the routines and regulations that govern the school day not as the means by which we are integrated into a cohesive whole, but as tools that essentially perpetuate the power and privilege of capitalists and others in positions of authority. These routines dull our creativity and foster obedience in ways that benefit capitalism and the powerful. Where the theories overlap is in the observation that schools teach many things, and one of the things it teaches in the lots of ways is how to function within a group and fit into society as a whole. And then evaluation. Hidden curriculum evaluates students in terms of their compliance with the hidden curriculum. There, students may be evaluated typically with an S or satisfactory or U unsatisfactory in categories including works well independently, is organized, puts for good effort, talks at appropriate times, completes works on time, completes homework, expresses ideas clearly, participates in class discussions, shows respect for others, and etc. And then classroom codes. According to Basil Bernstein, the term code refers to a set of organizing principles that govern the language practice of members of a social groups. With respect to education, a code is a regulative principle that underlies various message systems, especially curriculum and pedagogy. Pedagogy refers to the means of transmissions of knowledge, the activities in which students and teachers engage to master the content of the lessons, usually through the structured curriculum. This code shape student-teacher interaction and shape the atmosphere of the classroom by stipulating who can speak, what they are permitted to say, and when. Those who control what knowledge is transmitted in the curriculum also have control over how knowledge is transmitted. And then, for Bernstein, ordinary interactions like this illustrate the preference for an elaborated speech code. For example, in the first grade, teacher holding up a picture to her class and asking students to tell a story about the image. The picture shows a half-eaten blueberry pie sitting on an open windowsill. Sitting on the grass outside is a beer cup with a guilty look on its face. Then teacher calls on Brendan, who replies he ate it. Wrinkling her nose and not quite satisfied with his answers, then teacher calls on Olivia, who answers, the baby bear ate the pie. In response, the teacher smiles and says, very good. This routine and seemingly insignificant interaction confides to all present who the smart student is and who the dull student is. Brendan's statement is less clear. Brendan uses a restricted speech code. This way of speaking is efficient. It uses few words to convey our core meaning. It is an especially effective code to use when speaking with smaller groups who have shared understandings. And then, from the example, we know that language differences reflect and reproduce social class inequalities. First, language use reflects class differences because working class children are socialized to use restricted codes while middle class children are socialized to use elaborated codes. Second, language use reproduce inequality because schools in the middle class world of work operate according to elaborated speech codes. Their students have to clearly explain what they mean so the ideas are truthfully explained, leaving no ambiguity. Consequently, those who have been socialized to use elaborated speech codes are more likely to be defined as smart and hardworking, while the socialized to use restricted speech code is labeled lazy or less intelligent. And then cultural capital and organizational habitus. Cultural capital is a symbolic resource related to our cultural style, taste, and experiences, which can be used as a form of social exchange. What that means is that individual with the right kind of cultural capital often receive social rewards, like an attention from a teacher and being labeled interesting or bright. And then organizational or institutional habitus is a new term to describe how class-based dispositions, perceptions, and appreciations transmitted to individuals in a common organizational culture, like schools. This term is based on the publication of Bourdieu's theory, that is cultural arbitrary, to describe the fact that those things that are defined as valuable forms of cultural capital are defined as worthy merely because the dominant classes have said they are. And then at the elementary level, organizational habitus has been used to explain teachers' approach to innovative and challenging pedagogy. While at the high school level, the concept has been used to explain how some schools, independent of individual students' performance, routinely send their careers almost exclusively to two-years college or almost exclusively to highly selective four-years college. And then, normative institutional arrangement. The impact of the organizational habitus on students' experience is they often use the term normative institutional arrangements to describe how features of campus life structure student life and transmit a common organizational culture. On college campus, normative institutional arrangement emerge from the student body size and compositions, such as in terms of race and social class, housing pool size, alcohol pool size, the allocation of space, and many other. This arrangement, many of which students are only vaguely aware of, ultimately shape social interactions and establish control over social environments. Education and the built environment. Explain about physical conditions and architecture of school building. Architectural design reflects the purpose that a building is intended to serve. In turn, the design influences the activities and interactions that take place within a building. Evidence suggests that the architecture of buildings and the layout of classrooms influence students' learning, behavior, and identities. This is one area that research should continue to explore, given that it is one thing that school district and administrations can clearly control. Research suggests that student learning is a product of the physical environment of a student's schools. Specific features of the built environment that are thought to impact working conditions and learning include the first, ideal temperature, natural lighting, building quality, location of student seat, the structure of the classroom and school also impact friendship patterns, and the organizational structure of the school can also affect interactions among students. And then school size, is smaller better? So schools within schools are large public schools that have been divided into smaller autonomous subunits. Research explains that in smaller schools, students can play more active roles, hold more leadership roles, and interact more informally with teachers and administrators. In contrast, the climate in large schools leads students to be more passive with adults and to be followers. And then, the educational climate and school effectiveness. Climate brings to mind temperature and weather conditions. Within the school setting, temperature can be a warm and nurturing atmosphere, cool and laden with formal rules, or downright scary and dangerous. But less formally, climate and culture constitute the unofficial happenings and the atmosphere that pervade each educational setting. In this section, we consider school and classroom culture and climate, focusing on the factor that influence effectiveness of school. And then the topic, school and classroom culture. Each school and classroom has a culture of its own. School and classroom climate consists of the values, attitudes, beliefs, norms, and customs of those making up the system. A key function of this culture is to bring about a group feeling of loyalty. Each school's culture includes its rituals and ceremonies. The school culture reflects the community in which the school is located and its students' characteristics. And then, the school and classroom learning climate is a major factor in students' mental and physical health and behavior. Absenteeism, suspension rates, motivation to learn, aggression, violence, and harassment and academic outcomes are result from negative learning climates. And every school has a different school climate dimension. School climate dimensions can affect students' motivation, aspiration, achievement, and feelings of safety and comfort in school. There are several aspects of school climate dimension, namely the first, safety. Generally, in US, many students don't feel safe in school. Consider the examples of peer physical and verbal violence, cyberbullying, and homophobia. For those who fear violence on a daily basis, school is an intimidating and uncomfortable climate. Current efforts to make schools feel safer for students who are bullied and those who bully focus on establishing school rules and discipline, implementing penalties for bullying, and planning interventions by caring teachers and staff. And then relationship. The student-teacher relationship is a key factor for success in the educational process. Students' academic and behavioral problems are more likely when student-teacher relationships are negative. A problem that starts as early as kindergarten and carries through high school, often because labeling has taken hold. A climate of positive relationships, including those based on respect for class, race, and gender differences, result in better academic achievement and fewer discipline problems. And then teaching and learnings. The teacher's role as the primary decision maker in the classroom is complex. Thus, teacher must make decisions about strategies to use in the classroom, ranging from power to subtle cues to changing the physical or social organization of the class. One major challenge faced daily by teachers, which is especially evident in substitute teachers, is the effort to perfect the delivery of their lessons from disintegration and internal defection by students. And then, school connectedness and institutional environment. Studies indicate that positive school connectedness is closely related to positive academic outcomes, violence prevention, and education in risky behaviors. Some research on small schools demonstrates that when larger schools are broken up into smaller units in the same building, the schools attract different groups of students, as friends want to continue to associate with friends who often share common level of achievement and attitudes about the schools. And the last is value climate. Schools teach more than reading, writing, and arithmetic. Both the formal and informal organization and curriculum include lessons in values and morals. Tough lessons in morals came up informally within the curriculum content of other subjects. Seldom was the purpose of a lesson to instill moral content. Efforts today to reduce bullying are one example where explicit moral lessons about respect and tolerance are taught in school. Schools and classrooms might also post lists of do's and don'ts, rules, regulations, and customs. Some of these relate to student conduct, dress, and language use. In addition, verbal and nonverbal cues let students know when their behavior is unacceptable. It is through this message that students learn the informal lessons of schools.